Tell me what anarchists believe.
Yeah. Anarchists have fundamentally been against all sorts of sort of hierarchy and domination from the beginning. So a central part of anarchist ideology is that we should live in a world where there's proper equality, not in some sort of society where the state literally controls everything. I think there's different aspects to globalization, and that's the thing that has to be uncovered first. I think what we would most object to is neoliberal globalization, which is essentially the economic section of globalization. I mean, globalization in the form of the internet and all sorts of other, communications, the more interconnectedness of the world is not necessarily a bad thing. And in fact, it opens up a lot of opportunities for the working class. But in its economic form, and I think because anarchists are anti-state and anti-capital, anti-capitalist, the fact that neoliberalism right now is being driven, neoliberal globalization is being driven by essentially a global elite made up of capitalists and the state managers for their own benefit at the expense of the working class. That's obviously why I think we would oppose globalization in its current form. I think we would definitely be for something like globalization from below. So forming links with working class people all over the world to essentially create a revolutionary global movement that could overcome the current sort of organization. I think that's been the major problem with neoliberal globalization, is that it's basically entailed sort of deregulation, trade liberalization, casualization, retrenchments, things like outsourcing, really detrimental to working class movements, and just huge rising inequality. So there's just less and less opportunities, I think, for people these days in sort of what they, in terms of getting jobs and getting decent jobs.
What is your kind of way of going about problems with globalization?
It's a difficult thing. I mean, I think one of our key objectives would be to work with trade unions. Trade unions are central to anarchist strategy. And I think what we would advocate would be a sort of, as we're saying, globalization from below, where instead of, often what happens is that with the decline of the sort of nation state, and because economic globalization is linked to things like the International Monetary Fund and the World Trade Organization actually regulating the economy rather than national states as it was in past times. So a lot of working class movements, I think, they kind of look back to that and they try to look to the state to protect them against workers from China or workers from Mexico that are undercutting their wages. I think that the anarchist strategy generally would be to organize workers rather in China and Mexico and to bring their wage level up to the same as that of the more expensive level. So it would be essentially alliances of workers and poor people, both inside and outside the workplace, fighting a global struggle against the global ruling class.